Dear parents, our program will begin in 3 minutes. Please stand by.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's talk, Thriving Through Crisis Part 2, Becoming Your Child's Source of Strength. I am Mrs. Karen Kalakian, the Grade School Guidance Supervisor.
I'm Mrs. Smiles Lahencio from the High School Guidance Office. It is our pleasure to be your host for today. Let us start this session with an invocation to be led by Mrs. Jack Tan, the Grade 10 level representative. It will be followed by the Philippine National Anthem and the ICA school song. May I request everyone to please stand.
Let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity given to us today. We pray that you guide us, you guide our speaker as she share her knowledge with us. We also pray that our fellow parents may be able to learn through this talk and be a source of our strength for our children. Our Lady of Immaculate Conception, pray for us. Through Jesus, through Mary, we give thanks.
Alam ng puso sa titik mo'y bungay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting sa manlulupang
Before we get started with today's session, I would like to go over some information and reminders about our two platforms for today. For our participants in Zoom, the microphone and video feature will be disabled for the entire duration of the talk. So as not to disturb our speaker, the chat function for participants will only be enabled 15 minutes before the talk ends, so you can start sending in your questions. For those in Microsoft Teams, if you have any questions during the presentation, simply look at the question box in your Microsoft Teams control panel located at the right side of your screen and type in your question. Feel free to do this at any time throughout the session. We will bring them up during the Q&A. Now, may I ask Mrs. Smile Florencio to introduce our guest speaker for today.
Thank you, Mrs. Calaquian. Our guest speaker graduated from the Ateneo de Manila University in 1987 with a degree in BS Mathematics, summa cum laude. She also received a master's degree in counseling psychology and a doctorate in clinical psychology from the same university, where she is now a full professor. She specializes in math and science education and popularization, learning psychology, parenting, teen and children's issues. She has written on family businesses, family issues, inspirational stories, among others. She has also headed Ateneo teams that study the best practices of Filipino public and private school achievers and the media habits of Filipino youth. She is a daily newspaper columnist and works with government and civic groups to improve math, science, and education in the country. Dear parents, let us welcome Dr. Quina Lee Chua.
Thank you, Smile. Good afternoon, parents, both of you, both those who are in Zoom and those who are also on Microsoft Teams. I will now start sharing my slide. And okay, the title I was given by Smile and Karen would be Thriving Through Crisis. How do we become our children's source of strength? This came about when we were talking with Joan Villamor last year on mental health of students and also actually their parents. So a lot of times this talk would be on mental health, which is what a lot of parents are asking for. But I also want to make this a positive message. So let me just start by saying that the only way we can become sources of strength and hope for our children would be to take care of ourselves first. So this is the very famous put on your oxygen mask first before you put on the mask for your child. That could be something that we often forget, especially for mothers, especially working mothers, even in this pandemic. I've had heartbreaking Zoom sessions with some parents, not necessarily Ika, but some parents who are heartbroken about the mental and emotional health of their children in this pandemic. But I also tell them there's nothing much they can do to help their kids if they themselves are also extremely highly affected by what is happening. So I told them the best way you can help your kids first is to get a grip on yourself first, which means you need to help yourself first, take care of yourself first. I am known for being quite straightforward and direct, and I don't have too much time to talk to you because I will go into what you wanted, which basically would be what are the warning signs and what do we do if our children are anxious and or depressed. So very straightforwardly, I'm just going to tell you, parents, according to many of my college students, some of whom are from Ika and Xavier, many of whom are from Ika and Xavier, they tell me that their parents have mental health issues but do not want to seek help. So diretso na ako, parents, from my students, your children, if you know that you are suffering from anxiety, depression, and many other issues, please seek help. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to seek help. You don't have to suffer alone. You are not the only one who is feeling scared. You're not the only one feeling panicky. You're not the only one who cannot breathe. You're not the only one who cannot sleep. And parents, there's no stigma in therapy, not now. Your kids are very open to it. Please also be open, if not for your sake, then for the sake of your children. So that's the first thing. Take care of your own mental and emotional health. It is so ironic that many of my students are depressed because they are worried about their parents. It should not be so. Okay. Later on, you can, Q&A. I think I can see, I know what your questions are going to be. What do we do if a family member doesn't want to admit niya? Mamaya na, we can talk about those. But I will just go through something to help everybody now, which would be the warning signs. And for this session, which might be even more important than the session I did with you before, the session I did with you last year was a session on online learning. Of course, every school is asking for that. But this session might even be more important, a little bit more sobering, because this session sometimes we're dealing with life and death matters many times, okay? Especially with emotions of our children. So again, parents, put on your oxygen mask before you put on the mask of your child. I'll now go to warning signs and risk factors. Biggest risk factor for mental health issues for anyone, our children and ourselves, would be history of previous problems. So if your children previously have been suicidal or depressed, that is the biggest risk factor. Can they ever get better? Yes, of course, they can get better. But many of the students I have dealt with, hundreds of them, who are depressed, I started dealing with them 10 years ago, and some of them I still keep in touch with today. They tell me that their depression does come and go, but they now know how to deal with it. So, ma'am, mas alam na namin ang mangyayari when it strikes. So they can sometimes even prevent the worst of it. But can you really be cured? I'm not so certain you can really be cured. Okay? But definitely, which means if I know a student tells me, Mom, I used to want to kill myself last year, ngayon hindi, I am happy that they are in a more stable condition, but I keep on telling them they still need to take the medications they were taking before based on their doctor's advice, or they still need to continue therapy. In short, they cannot just feel, okay, I'm totally okay. Sometimes it's mania, manic depression, so they can swing from extremes. And I've seen this happen with so many female students. So history of previous problems, depression, aggression, this would be a risk factor for present ones. Genetics. There's nothing much we can do about genetics. And parents, please do not feel this is your fault. Okay, so this is not you. One parent was crying to me na it's her fault now that she is, parang she's giving her daughter her depression. I told her, but you won't know. She said, but I knew I was very depressed and I still wanted to have a child. I said, nobody can fault you for wanting to have a child. So parents, if you're like, it's not your fault, it's nobody's fault. So I'm just saying it's genetics. So sometimes I tell the kids that, let's just be more alert if there is. Science tells us for depression, for instance, it's as high as 40%. Later on, I'll tell you a certain chromosome. What does this mean na lang, parents? So if the mother has a history of depression and the father also has a history of depression, then let's not be in denial. So especially in tween and teen years, if the child manifests symptoms of depression, it really might mean there could be. It could mean that the child really can be depressed. Some icans have told me their parents always feel that, hindi naman totoo yun, nag-OA lang sila. Minsan nag-OA sila, tama. I've seen it in my students. But the mere fact na nag-OA sila with their symptoms already means may problema sila. So even if it's not full-blown depression, even if it's exaggeration, and yes, many young people do tend to exaggerate, it still means there is something wrong. So parents, if your child manifests something, don't just brush it off. Okay? And same thing goes for you. There's no shame in saying that you're depressed. Okay? So it could be as high as 40%. There's nothing much we can do with genetics, but this one we could. Okay, maybe we have some control. Serious aberrant behavior by family and friends, severe family conflicts. I cannot say cause because causation is something very difficult, but I can say it can trigger. Family conflicts can trigger mental health issues, especially abuse. Sexual abuse, definitely. I'm happy to say in ICA, not much. In Ateneo, sometimes I have cases, but knock on wood, not as much as maybe other countries. But there's physical abuse, sometimes marami. Emotional abuse, marami. Friend suicide, yeah. So the environment does count. When I say family conflicts, for ICANs, for many ICANs, a big risk factor would be if the father and the mother are constantly fighting, and especially if the father or the mother has affairs, especially if the father and the mother force them, in a sense, to choose. Let me just tell you a story about a savior boy. This savior boy used to be one of my best students, but he actually was doing self-harm and depression, and I was worried because he didn't seem to be that years ago. And he just broke down and told me that he could not stand it because his father was having an affair and his mother was very angry with the father, but was helpless to stop the affair. So the mother would cry on him. So this savior boy was the eldest son. So the mother would cry on him and would say bad things to him about his father. So this son felt really angry with his father, but still, of course, loved the father and was on the side of the mother, but he did not want to hear the mother say bad things about the father. So he kept on cutting himself. Hindi niya alam yung gina, he was harming himself. Grabe, his arms are full of, sabi ko, my God, you're gonna be infected, you know? So he's in Ateneo now, and I just said Xavier because his high school was in Xavier. He's in Ateneo now, and he's now being helped by us. But I was horrified, and I was so family conflicts. I kept on telling him that he should not feel that it was his fault, that his parents, that his father is having an affair. He said he knows that. But he told me sometimes he also feels guilty because he cannot help his mother. Because sometimes when the mother starts saying bad things about the father, he told me he wants to shout at her already because he just wants to cover his ears. So this poor kid is 18 years old, I think 19 years old. And his life, he says he doesn't know how to go on. And his mental health is so rough because he's being torn apart by two parents. And this is what scared me. He told me he's not the only one who is experiencing this thing. He told me, Mom, ang dami namin. From my high school, from college, sabi na, ang dami namin. Sabi niya, minsan naiinis kaming lahat sa mga magulang namin. So I just felt I have to tell you now. I have his permission to tell you what happened to him. He is being helped now, but he's still in not a very good state. So that's what I mean by severe family conflicts. Parents, especially if you have younger kids, there's no way we can judge your relationship. So if it's a marital matter, normally we don't, there's no way we can judge. We don't know. And we don't have the right to interfere. But this is just what I can tell you, is the effect I see in my college students. And if it happens to college students, lalo na sa mga bata. So parents, kung kaya ninyo, if you have problems among, the couple, the family, please do not let this spill out to the children. Do not say bad things about the other spouse. Don't. Even if it's true, even if maybe you want sympathy, it's so difficult for children to understand, especially they really put both parents on a pedestal. So kung kaya ninyo, please seek help. Seek marital therapy. Act as a united couple in front of your children. Because I've seen so many kids scarred by their parents' conflicts. So yun. Okay, victimization due to physical, sexual, socioeconomic differences. In ICA, not so much socioeconomic, sexual, not so much. In fact, right now, the climate is the Generation Z and Generation Alpha. Alpha would be the ones who are now possibly in elementary. My students are now Gen Z. There's no more millennials. The millennials are actually, some of you young parents are actually millennials. Starting from the millennial generation and now, there's not as much LGBTQ discrimination. Many of my students tell me their friends are very open with it. The school is open with it. The teachers are open with it. The parents sometimes are open, sometimes are not. But this is not as much. So risk factor in ICA, I don't see this to be that big of a thing. Maybe except for those whose parents are still not open to the kids. So meron pa rin, pero not as huge stigma now. This one, sadly, is a big shock. I normally don't talk about gaming to ICA because my ICANs normally they're not really addicted to games. They're more addicted to social media. Having said that, in preparation for this talk, I spoke to several of my ICA students in college who tell me while they are not addicted to games, because of this pandemic, many of their younger sisters, and they know many of the friends of their younger sisters, are actually now always glued to the computer screen gaming. Nagulat ako doon. I did not do a big issue on this in my last talk because I thought, usually when I give talks at boys' schools, gaming talaga. But right now, I'm not too happy to know that because of the pandemic and the way that many of the kids, whether male or female, are being left, maybe the parents trust them too much. Many of the girls, this is not just ICA, by the way, this is all the schools. In Ateneo, we are now getting female cases of gaming addiction. So this is across the board. My students swear that their younger sisters sometimes, even if they're supposed to be classes online, another window is open. Sabi ko, sobra naman yan, and we're talking of grade school, lalo na high school, but sometimes it's also grade school. So no choice, I will have to now talk about gaming addiction. This is like, I really wish I didn't have to do it. So meron na ring problema. There's one thing the pandemic really made things worse, it would be people who were not formerly always online are now forced online, and they're developing the bad habits of those who used to be always online. Alienation from family and friends, such as bullying, and serious losses, death, perceived betrayal. Perceived betrayal, this one is a lot of times this is in ICA. Believe it or not, many of my female students right now still remember and are still hurt over the BFFs, former BFFs, the frenemies, their term is frenemies, toxic frenemies now. So they still remember the betrayals in high school. I can't believe it. Up to, they're in college now. When they do reflection papers, they tell me all what happened to them in high school. It's, ano ba yan? Usually this is a girl thing. Most of the guys don't say it too much. But the women, including ICANs, they do remember. And it does wreak havoc with their mental state. And a lot of times also, it is on social media. Like, bigla na lang i-unfriend daw, bigla na lang hindi sila ila-like. For some weird reason, this is happening a lot. So, and failed romantic relationships. The more the factors here, the higher the risk for mental health problems. Even more warning signs: academic difficulties, sudden drop in grades. Parents, this is sudden drop, which means if your daughter is a happy-go-lucky child, and she's always very happy with, say, a B or a B minus, and then a B to a B minus, that's not a sudden drop, it's fine. What we would be worried about would be a sudden talagang drop, like from an A to an F, from an A to maybe a C, ganon. Okay, but a little bit like A to A minus, that's nothing, parents, don't. So a little bit of drop is okay, but a sudden drop in everything would be difficult, would be a warning sign. Social difficulties. You know that she always has this friend, and somehow parang, they've not been talking for weeks. That is a big sign. Eating disturbances, I'm happy to say most econs do not have anorexia anymore. My cases of anorexic girls are way down, which is a good thing, but the bulimia is way up. And the students talk about it. They say that they know who the ones, parents are always usually the last to know. So bulimia would be their weight is still the same. They seem to be they seem to be normal, but they would purge themselves. They would spend a lot of time in the bathroom. They would say they're taking a shower, but it's not. And they would be very, very careful. One bulimic student I'm handling brushes her teeth 10 times a day to make sure that nobody catches her. So could be eating disturbances. Sleep disturbances, insomnia affects a lot of kids. If it's insomnia alone, I wouldn't worry. Lalo na kung noon pa lagi siyang insomnia. Except we also don't like it if young people don't get enough sleep because it makes them grouchy, it makes them not focus, etc. So insomnia alone may not be a warning sign, but insomnia with others of this might be. Insomnia, because they don't sleep at night, but during the day, they can barely stay awake. That's not too good. Anxiety, panic attacks, my gosh, this is so much on the rise. Sad to say, this is happening in ICA. Many of my Ateneo Ecans tell me they have had 1 or 2 panic attacks even while they were in school, even before the pandemic, which nobody knew. This affects especially women. This is like 10:1 women to. Even I've seen it on Zoom. So one of my students actually had a panic attack on Zoom, and I was na-guilty ako. Sabi ko, is it anything? I said, sabi niya, no, ma'am, I forgot to take my medication. Somehow she has medication for panic attacks. I don't know what it is. She forgot it. She was totally quiet and smiling, and suddenly she couldn't breathe. So even in Zoom. And she told me she's been having panic attacks since she was in grade 6. And I'm helping her right now with deep breathing, and talagang I told her, she's a good student, so walang problema sa academics, but she's panic attacks lagi. And I told her to just shut all social media. That's one of the biggest things that's making her have panic attacks. But deep breathing, and I'm telling her to go out and get some sunlight and get enough sleep. So we're working on that now. Excessive pessimism. This one is common now. I have 2 students who I told them they have to take a leave of absence because there's nothing we can do much to help them. They're extremely depressed. So every time I'm talking to them, they will say, Mom, there's no use. We're all going to die anyway. Parang whatever you say, they just say, we're all just going to die. So if your daughter is going into that, then that is a big warning sign. It's like, there's nothing much we can do. Why do we even have to study? Why do we have to learn? The world is going to hell, ganyan, or we're all going to die. The government will never get a handle on this pandemic. There's no use. Kung ganyan lahat ang sinasabi nila, that is a warning sign. And mood swings. Sometimes they're happy. On Monday, they're happy. Then you think they're okay. Then Tuesday, they're sad. And then I have many parents who say, we don't understand our daughter. Bakit biglang ganito siya? Minsan ganito siya. It's the same thing. Mania and depression, we call it manic depression, is actually the same syndrome. And common issues we'll discuss today, mood disorders. This is bipolar, would be the manic depression, self-harm, anxiety, panic attacks, phobia, etc. If this was a boys' school, I would discuss, I did this for St. Jude Catholic School last month. And I also had time to discuss Asperger's because they also have boys in there, and several of the parents wanted that. But Asperger's is mostly a boy thing. I've had a couple of girl cases, but since econs are the number one thing with econs is to be anxiety. It's thankfully not depression, but anxiety and dami girls. I would think it's almost more than half would have some anxiety of some sort. So I will, depression and anxiety would be the first 2 I would really talk about. This is a real question from a parent, Ateneo parent, who actually just asked it. Why is suicide increasing among the young? It's not just in the Philippines, but also around the world. So yes, it is true that millennial and Generation Z, yes, the statistics are higher around the world. Number one, it's because there's more awareness. Maybe before, suicide is considered as shameful and sinful and etc. So people hide it. Maybe that could be one. I think there could be one. Right now, people are more open, so we see the figures are more. So people are reporting it, so there are more figures. I'm hoping this is the case. As I told you, genetics somehow, I was talking to some doctors about this, and they say genetics would be genetics, but also maybe because of poverty, because of pollution, because of the food we eat, etc. Our genes are so magulo that we don't know too much about this, but this is the chromosome I told you about. Chromosome 3p2526 is the chromosome which is implicated a lot in depression. So they already pinpointed it. You know, many of the depressives are, when they did the cadavers in America and they did autopsies, they did find out that these were the case. Social media. This one I totally believe. Many of us think that this is the case. The students themselves tell me this is the reason why many of them are depressed and anxious. It is coming from the children. If you want to see some of the things, in childmind.org is social media use causing depression. You know, even 13 reasons why this horrendously bad TV show, release of 13 reasons why associated with increase in youth suicide rates. You know, so all of this is the National Institute of Mental Health in the US. So these are science people, and they're talking about social media and media. So this is for me the biggest thing that we should save our children from. I'm not saying that they should not use social media, but parents, please, please, please have a talk with your children. That the school is doing many things about this one. Your children know what to do, except they just cannot do it if they're addicted. This is the one I don't want to hear from parents, but this is what many parents tell us. They say, hindi na namin kaya yung mga anak namin. Parents, you are the parent. You have to talk to your children. You cannot tell us. You cannot leave it to the school. So many parents in this pandemic tell me they cannot control their kids. The kids want to do this. The parents just give in. How many parents have told me that? More than, I think 21 parents. The last one was just 2 days ago. So 21 parents, many of them my friends, tell me they actually just, you know, hindi na namin kaya yung mga bata namin. They just want to do this. If we tell them we're going to take it away, even this parent told me, and this is really heartbreaking, and I have no answer to this, but I'm being very, very blunt with you now. This is the parent who I already had to refer to another psychiatrist because and by the way, parents, I cannot take on cases. I have a lot of cases in Ateneo, so I cannot take any ICA. I could only take Ateneo cases, and my students only cannot do anymore. So this would be maybe the worst case that possible. This parent told me that they tried to limit the social media use and the gaming of their child. But this child is in high school. But this child said, if they take away the gadgets, he will kill himself. Ganun na. So the mother was crying to me on Zoom. And my heart went out to her. She's such a good mother who tried so hard. Such a good mother who tried so hard to just give her child what he wanted. But so I told her, so she asked me, what do I do? Because if I take away his gadgets, he will kill himself. Ganun na kagrabe. So I said, I don't know. I said, all I know is you cannot also go on this way. He cannot also go on this way. Your child cannot go on this way. I said, you need help. And it has to be somebody, it's intensive help. So I gave her just the names of certain psychologists I know. And of course, I prayed for her. But it has come to that. But The reason why it came to that also, when I was doing the background with her, was this child of hers was given all sorts of gadgets starting primary school. So it just became worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse through the years. So in a sense, there could have been a time when the child could have done self-regulation. But because the mother, who was a very good mom, loved her child and just gave him everything he wanted, naging addict na yung bata. So naging addict na, ganito yung mangyayari. So what are we going to do now? That I keep on harping on social media because to be addicted to this takes some time. So you don't get addicted overnight. So once or twice, if they just go, over the curfew or something, it's okay. You don't want a pattern of behavior. It's like any other addiction. So the best thing we have to do is to ensure that they never become addicted in the first place. Because when they become addicted, they will now say things like, I will kill myself if I can't get... Of course, he will kill himself because it's an addiction. If he doesn't get the gadget, masakit yan sa buong katawan niya. The craving is there. It's very, very painful. The craving it's called behavioral addiction. The behavioral addiction to games and gambling is the same thing as a substance addiction. So of course they're going to kill themselves. They can't stand it. So we just have to ensure that it doesn't reach that part. I'm just worried because of what I'm hearing and what my students are saying and what schools are telling me. That because of this pandemic, there's a lot of now, even the doctors, many of the doctors are telling me that they're getting... One developmental pediatrician told me, I couldn't believe it, that her youngest internet addict is 7 years old. I cannot believe it. So, natatakot din siya. So, ganun na. So, please, this one, we cannot stop them from using it, and there's no way, the social media can be used for the good, but not addicted to it. Okay, so use it wisely. And perceive rejection from loved ones, it's a big thing, and lack of grit. Some parents will say, why? What are their problems now? Many of the problems the kids have right now are the same as the problems we have. So I have students who are very depressed because they had their heart broken. And I would tell them, kayo naman, in my time when we had heart broken, the guys would just, they would actually go drinking with their friends, make sure they don't drive, and they would be, after a week, they would be fine. And the girls, of course, you know what the girls do. I said, in my barkada, if one of us gets our heart broken, the entire barkada hates the guy. That's a coping mechanism. I said, none of us ever felt we were going to jump off a building if we had our hearts broken. But right now they are. Because, that's again social media. Like, this would be how... This one, I can tell you, she's an Ikan. Okay, I can tell you. She's an Ikan who's now in Ateneo. So I have her permission to tell you this. She told me it's also okay to tell you she's Ika. So she and I Zoomed last December, just last month. And she told me, Mom, please again tell me what is wrong with me. I said, there's nothing wrong with you. She's a good student, so this is not academics. She said, Mom, this is going to be December 25. And I feel so lonely because I don't even have a boyfriend. And Mom, you told me last year, that the time will come. I said, the time will come. But Mom, there's really, Mom, parang this, what's really wrong with me? So, okay, what am I trying to say? That for many women, for some weird reason, and these are intelligent women, and sometimes the intelligent women are the ones who cannot deal with romance. I have no idea why. So she's quite depressed in Christmas time. Because in her entire barkada, she said she was the only one who doesn't have a boyfriend. And she doesn't really want to Zoom with anybody except me, because I'm married now. She doesn't want to Zoom with any of her barkada because they would tell her that, the boyfriend would send them something. And she felt really bad. And she told me she wanted to spend Christmas Day lying in bed and not waking up, which scared me a bit because she didn't really have depression. But she was quite depressed for the Christmas and New Year's week. So, yung parang, sabi ko sa kanya, ano ka ba? Sabi ko, you have so much to offer the world. I said, you just haven't met the right guy. Pero and of course, her parents don't know. She will not tell her parents about it. So even if it is a minor thing, it is minor maybe for us, maybe minor for me, but it is a big thing for a child who is smart and a child who has everything except a boyfriend in this case. So I told her about grit. I told her, come on, you can't have everything and go dire-diretso na. Pero, it could be. She just said, Mom, I don't want to wait anymore. When will the time come? Ayan na. So I told her, ikaw na naman, diyan ka na naman. Instant gratification culture. I said, you cannot just conjure a boyfriend out of thin air. So, and she told me before when she was in ICA and they have these promposals. Promposals. She told me she didn't get a promposal. So even when she was in high school, even the thought of a promposal, so whatever. So parang, this whole romantic thing, importante sa kanya. And it's making her, it's wreaking havoc a bit on her mental health, even if she's healthy naman, but that's her biggest thing. So yeah, so many of the problems that they have now are magnified because of media, because she watches rom-com, Hollywood movies. So, I told her, just stop watching those, just watch a documentary. Said, watch a science documentary, watch a documentary on how you can make a difference in the world rather than on unrealistic Sex and the City types. So, ganon. So parents, again, the media and the films our kids watch, we do not ban them, but we need to be aware of what they're doing and the effects they have on the kids' mental health. Everyone, parents, please watch this. If your child is grade 7 up, this is quite interesting because I talked to St. Jude, not just parents, I talked to the entire St. Jude Catholic School, high school student body just last week. So the entire grade 9 to grade 12. And nag-usap talaga kami, as in, not like these parents where I'm normally giving the lecture. Yung sa estudyante kasi there's interaction. So I would actually be asking them, it was through Zoom, and they would be typing down their answers. And this is also what I told. They were quite good. I was very impressed, hundreds of them. And I did tell them about the social dilemma, and I know that they know this. And this is quite popular among the kids. So parents, I'm just telling you, some of the matitinong mga bata, they're watching this. So I already talked about this film with my students. This won so many awards. And this is on Netflix. Watch this. Maybe you can watch it alone first. But you can watch it with your kids and you can discuss it. Okay, so this is a bit disturbing because this is basically social media and the very negative things that technology does, which is more than, it goes beyond cyberbullying and what we know. And the people who are interviewed in this film are Silicon Valley insiders, but their names are there and the affiliations are there. So you will hear from former Google employees, former Facebook employees, former talagang big honchos. Some of them regretted actually creating social media because they saw how it is being used badly now. So this is a film I think everybody should watch. This is what's happening now, social media and depression. It is internet AID, internet addiction disorder, is already real depression. It is part of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It is elevated. Okay, isolation of the real world. What I told you about Facebook addiction is there. 81, etc. There is a dopamine rush. So the dopamine rush is it's what all addicts experience. If you're addicted to alcohol, okay, then every time you down alcohol, you will get the dopamine rush. It is a neurotransmitter that gives pleasure. And it's also the same thing that I was telling you a while ago, that if our kids become addicted to social media and to gaming, those two, they cannot stop. That's because every time they go online, they get that pleasure, they get that high. So kahit na, if they're already addicted, if we keep on getting mad at them, like parents who don't understand this, if you keep on just shouting at them or getting mad at them, you can't do anything. They're addicted. So it's like there's no way they can think sensibly because it is an illness. So if they're addicted, you need help. The people you should talk to would be developmental pediatricians or addiction specialists. Okay, so those two. So if you're listening now and you feel your kids or you yourself are like that, it's for children, it's developmental pedia. For adults, it's addiction specialist. Okay, so those two. So if you just keep on telling them, why are you flunking and you're still gaming, they cannot stop. That's the nature of the beast. Okay, so recommended treatment for internet would be directly with an experienced therapist. There's no way parents can do this. Even ako, kung severe na talaga, hindi ko na kaya sa mga estudyante ko, I refer already. Internet gaming disorder symptoms, withdrawal, relapse, tolerance, increased amounts of gaming are needed, mood modification. And while they're gaming, the person feels euphoria, physiological arousal. But then, if they're not gaming, online gaming dominates life, overtakes thoughts, emotions, behavior. When not playing, all they can think about is the next game. So this is a disorder. This doesn't mean that your child is a bad kid. It just means it is an illness that we should actually be talking about and that they need help for. Sobrang takot na lahat ng tao. So World Health Organization, excessive screen use and gaming during COVID-19. Before, they used to say this is boys, but again, this is also for everybody now. It's for girls. So, yan na. Physical inactivity, no exercise at all. Day-night reversal, what I told you about. Malnutrition would be they're not really taking care of their bodies, headaches, neck pain, cyberbullying. Ang dami-dami nila. Screen use involving video games is not recommended. Children with gaming disorder, cyberbullying. I just want to highlight these parents because my students are also telling me about this one. The newest games that are coming online have gambling-like elements. So increasingly, online games include gambling-like elements, such as loot boxes or microtransactions. So in the middle of the game, they're asked to have almost like a weird game cyber currency. So these kids are now going to go for, so this is a new thing, which is bothering us a lot. The bad thing is all of these are legal, and I checked out some of the games my students told me, lahat yon. Ang gaganda ng graphics, sobrang addictive talaga, and meron ng gambling elements. Parang napapagod talaga ako, parang dami-dami na. Parents just be very, so far I know the girls are not too much addicted to this, but two of my boys, college, one is a freshman, one is a sophomore, told me that one boy is okay, he's taking down odd jobs to be able to earn money for this one. Inis na inis ako, sabi ko, you should not be doing this. And the other ones, natatakot ako, he might be stealing money just to be able to do this. So parents just know that the online games now, for the fathers who are listening today, I know you know this because many of my students tell me their fathers are the ones who introduce them to games, especially my male students. So fathers, you will know many of the latest versions of the most popular games already have gambling-like elements. Please, 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 if you're doing this with your children, tell them that you don't want the gambling thing. Tell them that whatever it is, even if to go to the next level, you need to do this. Parang fathers, just please, please do not. We teachers are so tired with dealing with students who are addicted now. So fathers, just have the courage to regulate your children. And the earlier you regulate them, the better. So self-regulation. You're not going to ban it, but you want them to do healthy gaming. You want them to do healthy social media. Back to suicide, these are not true. People who talk about suicide don't do it. On the contrary, if they keep on talking about suicide, they probably will do it. Hindi ito kulang sa pansin. Minsan kulang sa pansin, pero hindi natin alam. So kahit akala natin KSP, we have to take it seriously. Many of those who talk about suicide actually have a plan of doing it already. They're fully intent on dying. Actually, no. I've talked to some of my students who attempted, who thankfully we were able to rescue at the last minute. And they tell me, Mom, I really don't want to die. So because so why did you attempt to do that, to take the sleeping pill? So they don't want to die now, but they want to end the pain. So parents, this is the mind of somebody who is on the brink. So it's not really dying they just want to end the pain. So what is the therapy I do, or what I coach teachers to do? So if that is their answer to end the pain, so we have to give them alternatives. Kasi they're in pain. It is an emotional, mental pain. So you have to give them alternatives, aside from dying or self-harming, that they can use to be able to manage their pain. So that is the way therapy really works. That is the way you should also think about it as a parent. So please don't tell them, oh, OA lang kayo, or don't tell them this. Ay nako, in our time, we were so strong. Kayo naman parang you're so weak. Don't. Yes, they're weak. They're very, very weak. But don't tell them that. Because if you tell them that, it can just push them over the edge. Parents, do not do it. Even if you're highly frustrated, bite your tongue. This is your kid we're talking about. So they're just in pain. We're going to reframe. I do cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's cognition and behavior. So I reframe their mind. So if they say, I'm such a loser, I will challenge it. What do you mean you're such a loser? Or I'm always flunking. So we go into why. Why is it you're always flunking? Yun. So you want to change their behavior to mitigate. I cannot end the pain. They're always in pain. But we want to minimize the pain. Okay, to decrease the pain in some way. Ending the pain is very difficult. They're almost always like, if you're depressed, you're always like in a gray area. So ending the pain is something very hard to do. But making the pain, living with the pain, could be. So I inspire them with tales of Rosel Ambubuyog, many other students who have, who are blind, who have disabilities, who can live with pain. Yan yung nangyayari. People who make suicide attempts are only looking for attention. Some are, but some are not. So anyone na lang who does this, let's just take care of them. Talking about suicide puts the thoughts into people's heads. That is such a big myth, especially among Filipino Chinese. That is not true. In fact, practically all of my students say, in Ateneo, we have been talking about mental health and suicide since 2013. And many, many times the students say, finally, there is an open forum that they can talk about, because they always felt they were the only ones and they think they're crazy. So we have so many thank you notes and so many students who say, you save our lives because finally we can actually talk about this in the open. So it is not true that it puts the thought into people's heads. It's not true. That one is false. Addictions are emotional outlets to reduce the chances. No. Anytime they have an addiction, yes, it is an outlet for stress. But if they have an addiction, it ups the risk for suicide. Okay, so some of the parents say, I let them do gaming na so that they will not kill themselves. It doesn't actually make any sense. The more they retreat into the game, the more isolated they are, and the more they might just kill themselves. Okay, so this is also not true. And we wrote a book called Lifeline. There's so many other myths, but I don't have the time. So these are just the most common ones. I'll talk a bit more about Lifeline later. These are just some examples of what suicidal students say. These are real quotes. I think about how easy it would be just to jump off, it will all be over. And ako, this one is from one of my smartest students. Nako, ganito sila magsalita. Do you really believe suicide is a sin? By dying, we do people a favor. They don't have to take care of us. And what if we are bad people? Mom, if it's bad people, isn't it better? Isn't it better for bad people to just kill themselves? This is how conflicted and how illogical their minds are now. But this is how they talk already. And these are some of the smartest people. So IQ is not, many of my saddest and most depressed people are those who are honor students. Okay, so I don't know why. They're so smart in other ways and so non-smart in many, sometimes the ways that matter. Or ito, everything is great. I'm going to a better place. Nakakatakot to. What's the point of going on? I'll never get things right. I don't want to live without my boyfriend. So this is what they know. Self-harm. This is happening. Yep. So cutting, pinching, hitting. One Ikan I have told me she was almost had a bald spot because even when she was in grade school now, she kept on pulling her hair if she's anxious. And she would comb her, she would comb her hair in that spot so nobody even knew she had a bald spot. That's self-harm. The binging, banging head against wall. Why do they harm themselves? Many of us who don't have mental health issues, this is the one that's hardest for me to understand. When I was looking at the infected wounds of my students, I told them, ang sakit-sakit nun. How come you're doing it to yourselves? How can you, some people, you're already in pain. How come you're inflicting more pain? That didn't make any logical sense to me. But they just told me, and this is totally weird, and it might not make some sense. They told me that yes, they're in a lot of pain. So when they're in pain, they will cut themselves. I said, why? You're inflicting more pain. They said, no. Yes, there is pain now because physical pain, because they cut themselves open. But they told me somehow, if it's just physical pain, parang they get a sense of relief. Na parang, oy, buhay pa pala ako. Na parang, or maybe the physical pain momentarily drowns out the emotional pain. It's something that we're still trying to get a handle of. So I'm the thesis advisor with some people, and some of them are doing thesis on self-harm. So we're trying to really interview people who did this, because we don't understand this. But basically, they cut. It doesn't mean that they're crazy. They cut themselves because they just want some relief, even if cutting themselves inflicts more physical pain. So they want to reduce negative emotions. So sabi ng isa, ma'am, it's easier for me to just deal with the physical pain rather than dealing with my head. Ganon yung exact words niya. And this is the one I don't like. Some of them also said, well, we're cutting ourselves. Many of them cut themselves to make their ex-boyfriends or girlfriends feel sorry for them, which is, naiinis ako doon, whether they do that to compensate for perceived wrongdoing done to them or others. So if I cut myself, baka maawa yung nanay ko, maawa yung boyfriend ko, maawa yung ganyan. So yes, sometimes cutting themselves is also, in a sense, a desperate cry for help, for attention from a loved one. Usually the loved one would be a family member, a parent, a sibling, or a romantic partner. So those are the three. But it's only temporary, and we don't want them doing it. So what do you do? Okay, parents, even if you're horrified and you see blood dripping down, stay calm. Keep your own emotions in check. This one I have to tell you, because sometimes many parents make things worse. You have to focus on your child's feelings. It is not your own feelings we're talking about. There was one Zoom meeting wherein I wanted to talk to a parent about her student. And it ended up, it was a 1-hour meeting. So 10 minutes kami about the child, 50 minutes kami about how anxious the parent is. In the end, sabi ko, nanay, please, let's go back and focus on the child. So minsan kasi some parents, I cannot say narcissistic, but some parents are self-focused. So, and your children know that. So sometimes my student would say, Mom, alam mo, this is really my problem, but my mother is making a big drama out of it. Akala mo it's your problem na. They actually say that. So parents, please, we want to help our children the most. So whatever issues we have, we focus on their feelings, we focus on their situation and not our own. Even if we're very scared, even if we're so worried. And we don't panic or be overly, we don't say, oh my God, what did you do? If you say that, we're human. I have done it. I've said it. We're human. I've said it, and I've apologized after. So when I see somebody who's like totally parang in bad shape, napasabi ko nga isang beses na, oh my God, what happened to you? Yung parang you were not like that when you were in my class last year. And then I regretted it the moment I said it. So I apologized. I said, I'm really sorry. Ako pa, I should know better. But napasabi ko lang because I was so shocked by his unkempt appearance. So parents, in case you said this, just apologize. Just say, I'm really sorry. I just said it out of shock, but I'm really here for you. So the more genuine we are, and let's not lie to them. So, parang if we're really shocked and we're not used to this and we see this happening and napasabi natin, let's also be kind to ourselves. Let's forgive ourselves. And let's also say sorry to our children. Okay? Show empathy and openness to listen. Acknowledge her pain and stress. So even if you feel it's a very small matter, like this parent told me, not Ika, but this is another exclusive girls' school, hindi niya maintindihan why her daughter wants to kill herself over the boyfriend. Hindi niya maintindihan. Sabi niya, ang babaw nun. So I told her, what she kept telling her daughter, but he's no good for you. I told you na nga before, I never liked him anyway. So she said so many bad things about the ex-boyfriend to the daughter. It made it, she thought she was making the daughter feel better, but the daughter felt worse. So I just told her, stop. Parents, this is one thing. let us not say anything really criticize our children's friends openly. Definitely, because kids hate that. Every child hates that. Does it mean that we cannot critique? Actually, we can, but we cannot stop. Let us not forbid them. So I know of parents who say, I don't want you to be ganito because I don't like her parents and she's a bad influence. Parents, the more you do that, the more they will go underground. Okay, so let's not do that. What you can do is, I'm a bit worried about ganito because I feel, I feel that maybe she might not be a very good influence on you. Maybe you want to help her. Maybe that's why you want to befriend her. Maybe just go into it, but don't ban them because they will resent it. What you can do would be start them early. Maybe when they're young, tell them, you can praise them. Oh, we're very happy that you're close with ganito. She's a good influence on you. Then she's also serious in her studies. Yung ganon. Do the carrot rather than the stick when they're young. Then you will also know. You can also shape it. And sometimes, some of the daughters tell me that they sometimes open up and the parents will just shut them down. So if your daughter or your son, those of you in Xavier, would tell you, would suddenly just say, Mom, what do you think of this? If they say it's hypothetical, it's not hypothetical. It meant that it really happened to them. Okay, but don't say that it really happened to them. In short, if they opened up on something or a hypothetical someone, it meant that it's their friend. So try to use your judgment and try to, parang be as compassionate and still wise about their relationships. So don't criticize, don't downplay. Don't say suicide is a sin because, as Pope Francis said, who are we to judge? Let's not go into that now. And don't threaten. This one is funny. If you don't stop moaning and groaning and saying you're going to kill yourself, I won't get the iPad. This is a real statement. So let's not do that. What else do you do? Gather useful information. How does a child harm herself? Does she cut herself, which means no knives? Is she intending to jump from a condo or whatever? There's some weird condos along Katipunan that we know many people like to jump from. So we also have a talk already with the condo administrator to ensure that they put, talagang walls so that the kids, in short, make it harder for them to jump. And some of the condos are actually doing that. In short, gather as much information as you can about how the child is injuring herself, why the child is injuring herself. Okay, so how and why. No condemnation, no anything. So it's a fact-finding thing. So talk to the people the child trusts. Many times it's a teacher. Many times it's also a counselor. Sometimes it's a tito, it's a tita, whatever it is. Never end the conversation when the child thinks their only alternative is self-harm. So you have to always end with a positive alternative for the child to do. And make sure that she does it. Never leave the child alone unless she's a threat to you. There's no stigma and seek help at once. Imminent risk, ER already, and you need to get the child to a hospital. And never fear that therapy is only for the crazy ones. Point out observations. Okay. Don't say this. Do not say, you are so depressed, but you have everything. What's going on? Don't say that. Because how do you know she's depressed? Diba? So don't accuse. What you do is you start with the facts. Point out observations. I notice you've been crying a lot for a week now. That is a fact that your child cannot contradict you on. If you say you're depressed, she's going to say, I'm not depressed. Tapos na. Wala na. You got nowhere. So go start with the facts. Okay, I notice you've been crying. Are you okay? What's going on? Okay, that's the first thing you do. So whenever I talk to clients, I normally sometimes don't want parents in the room because the parents will now say, but she's like this before you. Parang wala silang facts. Lahat hinala. And that doesn't help anyone. Start by getting the facts. When you go to a doctor, the doctor will tell you about the symptoms. The doctor doesn't want your opinion. The doctor wants to know what is really happening. So observations based on fact are the most important ones. And then assess the risk. Many Chinese parents are very worried. They don't dare. Somehow, many parents, especially young parents, are so scared about talking to their kids. I don't know why. Many parents would confide in me, but they don't dare confront their children. Even if their children are in grade school, this is a new phenomenon I'm not used to. So the parent will tell me many things, then I will become worried. Then I will say, so why is your daughter doing that? What did your daughter say? And the parent would say, oh, I don't want to talk to my daughter about that. I said, why don't you want to talk to your daughter? You're talking to me about it. And they would say, oh, because, I'm so scared she's going to kill herself. I said, well, if you're scared she's going to kill herself, you have to ask her if she's going to kill herself. So, ganito na ka-basic. So, kung takot ka na may mangyayari, you have to ask. So, parents, you cannot be scared of your kids. You have to, those are your kids. You brought them into the world. So, I'm now getting a bit passionate because this is happening so frequently now. This is a new phenomenon, by the way. 10 years ago, parents were not like this. So this is maybe happening in the past 1 year. It ballooned in the pandemic. Talagang somehow, sabi ko nga, you're in the same house. How can you not talk to your child about it? Because I'm scared she's going to kill herself. So I said, how will we know why she wants to do that? Diba? Of course you have to ask. So ask direct questions if needed. This one is a real case from my student. From an exclusive girls' school, not ICA, thank God, but exclusive girls' school. And I taught the elder sister. And the elder sister is the one who messaged me that the younger sister is saying goodbye. The elder sister already graduated. But, she just mentioned, Mom, ganon. Parang so, diniretso ko na yung estudyante ko. Your sister says you're saying goodbye to her. We're worried. Let's talk. Talagang diretso. And yes, she actually already had the plan. So if you have to, then ask direct questions. If you're worried that your child is going to harm herself, you have to talk to your children. You may want to be, talking to me would just be, okay, wala ko na yung, I suddenly press something, and I lost my own. Okay, I will share screen again. Okay. Ayan. Okay. Next one. What is imminent risk? Imminent risk, this is for the ER. If they already have a detailed plan and the method is readily available, like sleeping pills and alcohol, those two would be the one of the most common ones. Do they have a set time to harm? You need to call the ER already. And how great is the child's level? This is the book I was telling you about. For many parents who don't know what to say, the warning signs, we have scripts for you based on actual cases. There's one script here on how parents talk to a girl who attempted to end her life. So may ganon. Depression, self-harm, anxiety, etc. In Ateneo, every single department has a copy of this because the teachers in an emergency want to know what to say, what the warning signs are. This is available in Anvil if you want. Many of my students have it. They want it in ebook, so this is also available in Kindle in case you want. Amazon, Kobo, etc. You can just read it. Okay, more tips on communicating with teens. Actively listen. Listen first before giving advice. Reflect what the child says. So the child will say many things, then you listen. Even if you want to say something, don't say something first. So actively listen and observe. After you listen and observe, reflect what the child says. This one is a real case. So this is my student who was caught cheating and is in the disciplinary committee. So I was very disappointed with her. And ito yung sinabi niya. I cheated because I need an A. If I get low in the test, my parents will kill me. And she said many other things. But I don't want, of course, I know that the parents will not kill her. But this is what she said. So I would reflect and reframe what she says. So if she said this is what I said. Not getting a perfect grade seems to be an issue for you and your family. Why do you think that's so? So rather than focusing on the cheating and the discipline thing, which is what the discipline committee is, doing. I'm not the one. And by the way, she did not cheat in my class. She cheated in another professor's class. But she was one of my favorite students. So I was quite disappointed why she cheated in another professor's class. And that's what she told me. And, I said, of course she had to do probation. Of course she got an F. Of course she got a disciplinary warning. But more important for me is, What is the real thing here? It is not the parents killing her, it's other things. So this is what we did, and totoo nga, maraming nangyayari sa parents, sa pamilya nila. And then, only then, parents, when your daughter or your son feels safe, they will ask for advice. They will ask you what to do. That is when you advise. If they haven't asked you yet, we have to listen. Our biggest mistake is we just keep on doing an advice, even if they don't really want us. Sometimes they don't want advice because they know what to do. They just want somebody to listen to them. And that is the first thing they accuse their parents of not doing. That their parents always just want immediately now things to get better. So the parents won't even really listen. The parents won't even stay with them with the problem. So parents, yun yung unahin natin. We listen first, we observe, and after a while, they will ask for advice. Then we suggest what else to do. We challenge their thoughts. I'm such a loser. It's a thing I hear all the time. I said, really? In what way? Yan na. Then I will say, really? Who is your best friend? Sabihin niya, does your best friend think you're a loser? No, of course not. I said, see? So why do you think you're a loser? So mga ganon, So this is matagal. Pero this is what I do, so cognitive behavioral. And of course, help them develop better coping skills. This might sound a bit funny, but a lot of Econs and Athenians and Xaverians are having high anxiety now because they are missing their friends. And this is what DepEd told us. So DepEd told us kindergarten maximum 1 hour, 1 to 5, 1.5. I know of no school, maybe even ICA, that only does this few. All schools I know exceed the number of hours for class time. But if they do, because this is DepEd directive, we cannot exceed it by too much. What does this mean? There's no way, even if ICA wants, for ICA to be able to spend precious, very precious class time on the normal social interaction of children. We can't. But this is so important. I totally believe that life is not complete without friends, and that I agree with my students when they say that they need to be able to communicate with friends and still keep in touch with friends in the pandemic. So I would encourage everybody to do Barkada. Zoom is still the best one for me. Zoom get-togethers. Just texting or just doing the normal SMS is not the same. You have to make time for this. And this has to be regular. Aside from the normal academics, I would think every child should actually be Zooming 15 to 30. They don't need 2 to 3 hours. Just 15 to 30 minutes, maybe at least once a week to their closest friends. This is so important. This is so important for mental health. This will help with anxiety. So parents, even if you're very strict, and some Econ parents are very strict, and your kids are fine, I'm practically certain many of your children are missing their friends. So please schedule this. You cannot expect the school to do this. You have to schedule this as a parent. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be just 1 or 2 friends. But it has to be regular. It has to be friends they trust. So just Zoom it and talk to the parents of the friends of your child. But this is so important. We don't want our children just alone. Isolation can lead to self-obsession, which is now starting to know. If they keep on focusing on the self, it's not healthy for them also. We want them to be able to laugh, to sing, just do normal things with or without academics. It's okay if they want to talk about academics. It's also okay if they don't want to talk about academics. This is so important. They don't have recess. They don't have lunchtime. That was what used to be the ones that made them interact. So right now, parents, you would need to do your own recess through Zoom. Anxiety na. Anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety. Everybody who's there. For women, they're worried about everything. They're worried about reciting. They're worried about the requirements in online class. Kahit na madali na nga yung requirements in online class, they're worried about their parents. They're worried about their country. So if you talk to them, they're always worried with generalized anxiety. Obsessive compulsive are also classified as anxiety disorders. This one hits many of the top students we have. Many honor students are OC. I have to put my ano in a certain way. There, I have a lucky shirt. There, my pens have to be placed in a certain way. I have to start something on time. And the reason for obsessions and compulsions is this is a way for them to gain control over their world. So these could be students who excel because maybe they want to prove something to the parents, or maybe they just want, they feel that their family life is less than ideal and they want to, it's a defense mechanism. They want to be able to cope with life by having control over the things that they can control, which is basically studies. So students who are OC academically do very well, but mentally they're often the ones who first break down. If something goes awry, they're the ones who have panic attacks, etc. Phobia, excessive fear, social anxiety. Even during, one thing good about Zoom and one thing good about the clustering ICA is doing is many of the people who used to have social anxiety, because the groupings are fewer, can now recite. I know it because students tell me and parents tell me. That's one thing good. In Ateneo, we don't have the luxury of doing that. My class would be 30 to 40 to 50 students in the class. But I still have people who message me and say, Mom, I'm really sorry, I don't dare to recite even if on Zoom. So I would still try my best to get them to recite, especially if we do breakout rooms. Like I would tell them to go into groups and I would tell them, alam mo, mag-breakout room ako on Thursday, please recite then. Because I need grades for you. So I would almost like tell them not to do it. Help them overcome their social anxiety. And most of the time, this would be women. The guys are not worried, even between Xavier and Ika. The Xavierians are never scared to recite, but the Ikans are almost very, very often scared to recite. Not all, but they're good students, but they're quite shy. So social anxiety, many of them. Post-traumatic stress disorder during pandemic. How do you deal with anxiety? First, if it's school-related. Dealing with anxiety that's school-related is easier, but this is now at least half of what the kids are dealing with. So there's address bullying if needed. Bullying is one of the biggest causes. But many times, students have anxiety, again, because they do not have enough structures and strategies to do well. This is the easy part. And this is the part that I focused on in the last webinar I did for you. So create learning structure, maximize focus, and minimize online, study smart, minimize procrastination, consult, and independent learning. So this is easier to deal with. Having said that, I got 3 emails from 3 ICA parents after the talk saying that they missed the talk, and they also emailed me about the condition of their children. And I had to tell them, please go and look at this book, page ganito, this book, page ganito, this book, page ganito. Out of the 3 parents, 2 parents, they all thanked me. 2 parents did not get back to me. 1 parent, I don't know if you're listening today, but if you are, then you know who you are. 1 parent was very happy because she got what was the book that this parent liked. So this parent got this one, but the parent really liked these 2. So there were some study smart strategies that I directed the parent to get, and she did get them. She told me she first read them, then she gave it to her Ika daughter and her Xavier son. So they're doing it, and this one parent is very happy, especially with these 2 books. So going back, if these are your problems, because this can be the one that causes school anxiety, then I've done so many talks about that, and there are so many strategies. So this one is the most recent one. You can get it again at Lazada, Amazon, again as an ebook if you want, or Anvil Publishing. This one is the classic one for Ateneo parents. Ateneo parents like this because we did a study of 600 plus Ateneo parents, and this is based on the Ateneo findings. And this one is what the government and many of the doctors like, because this is about how to use social media, gaming addiction. We did this before the pandemic. And a lot of the boys' schools like this one, especially for the gaming addiction. There's a chapter there right on gaming. But this Ika parent, this one was a good thing because I never thought that this is the one that she would like. But she specifically said that these 2 books are the most practical for her. and the most practical for her Ika and her Savior children. So a thank you to this parent. I'm happy that you found it useful, and I'm happy that things are better now. So these two now are the ones. They're very, very short books. These two books are what my students like to read because they're shorter, and they're one chapter there is really for students. So if you want, it's all again on Anvil and on Lazada. Okay, suppose the anxiety is not about school. That is harder to deal with. School anxiety is easier. Suppose anxiety is about everything else, about the pandemic, about just, then it becomes, this is now when anxiety becomes, I think, a mental disorder. What should you do? First, they have to breathe. They really have to breathe. They are getting panic attacks because they cannot breathe. If your child is one of them, you have to lead her and just look at her straight and very, very calmly tell her, just breathe with her. It has to be deep breathing rather than shallower ones. That's the first thing. Then once she's calmed down, then look at worries and alternative ways. Again, the same thing, challenge irrational thoughts. Exercise is so important because there is endorphin there. Okay? So it would help in anxiety, it would help in depression. And when I say exercise, it is physical exercise, physical aerobic exercise, done at least 20 minutes simultaneously so that the endorphins can kick in. So 20 to 30 minutes, walking in the neighborhood, biking, swimming, jogging, dancing in the room, these are all good. Seek nature even online. I did this before, I will do it again. Even this, every time I'm feeling a bit tense because of a class, I would actually have this, and when I look at this one, I actually feel immediately my body becomes more relaxed. It's unconscious, So this is already just online. Lalo na if you happen to live in a subdivision and you feel it is safe to walk in the subdivision, just make sure it's safe to walk in the neighborhood. We don't want any things happening. So if you can, then just a walk. They need the sun. They really need the sun, space, etc. Because they're always online. So physical thing is so important. Use social media judiciously, connect with people face to face. Same thing, limit alcohol, the quantity of sleep, but also the quality of sleep. We don't want the blue light flickering in, which interferes with melatonin, which interferes again with the sleep-wake cycle. So a lot of anxious students are very anxious at night, and the more anxious they are, the more they are on social media, which makes it worse. Then they're very sleepy in the daytime. Okay, and seek unconditional love. This is unconditional. It's not just seek love. It's unconditional love. That if you can just tell your daughters that you love them, whatever they are, whether or not they make mistakes, and tell them that everybody is going to make mistakes, and tell them that because you love them, you're going to correct them when they make mistakes. That is a sign of love, but that you love them nonetheless. So this is something that they desperately need. Love without strings attached, love that they don't have to perform. That's their words. Worst possible cases, anti-anxiety, the anxiolytics, and the antidepressants. This is the one. In pandemic, we cannot avoid stress. We have to learn to manage it, and fear is normal. Calm your children. Again, the oxygen mask. Calm yourselves first. Avoid obsessing about things beyond your control. For instance, this one happened in my college class last week. One of my anxious students came and said, "Mom, I'm so worried. Look at what's happening to the US. This is what, the supporters of you-know-who stormed the Capitol and, diba? Nagkagulo yung US last week." So this student of mine who is always on CNN, who's always online, she's a good student, Yana. She said, "Mom, I'm so worried. What is going to happen in the US? What is going to happen?" Sabi ko, "Look, that's the US. And while it's very, very unfortunate," I said, "Why are you getting very anxious about it?" "Mom, because, it is happening. Look at them. Look at the people. Some people died." Sabi ko, "Yeah, but there's nothing we can do," I told her. There's nothing we can do. The American people, thankfully, decided, I'm just going to say this, thank God it is Biden and Kamala Harris who won. But, I said, so I told my student, there's nothing you can do. So why are you working yourself into such a state? Yan na naman. And that's just one student. And she's a good student. She said, Mom, but don't you? I said, I care about it. I said, my sister is in the US, so I do care about it. I said, but there is nothing I can do. And I told her, there's nothing you can do. I said, you bringing it up now in class, you just made me anxious. You just made the class anxious. I said, what is the reason for bringing it up? This is not a history class. We're not talking about it. I said, so why do you have to do it? And why do you have to make, I said, we already have so many things we can really be legitimately anxious about. Why do we do things which are out of our control? But that is what our students are. And she's not the only one. When they talk to me, it's like, why do you talk about this? Parang, ano ba yan? You know, sabi ko, guys, just focus on your homework. Ano ba? Why are you thinking of doing this, that, this, that, this, that? So yun na, focus on what you, so parents sometimes just tell them, maybe you can tell them, gently tell them, because you're the parents, when they talk to you about maybe the Capitol storming, you would have to listen and you would have to allay their fears. But you also redirect them. Now, you can tell them, I'm so happy that you're being, you're now reading the news, maybe you can, you know, or keeping up with the news. But let us first start at home. Charity starts at home. Learning starts at home. So let's focus on what we can do, honing our skills, helping frontliners, and we care for each other. So what are the stuff? If we know that these are the things that we're responsible for, and we have control over that, our anxiety naturally decreases. Our anxiety increases over things we have no control over. What will the government do? What will the leaders say? What will the vaccine be like? Should we get the China vaccine? We have no idea. And if we keep on focusing on those, we're just going to stress ourselves out. So we should perhaps, unless, if some of you are politicians here, you're listening, please do the right thing for everybody. If you're a politician, then yes, it is within your control and you have to do it. But we who are not politicians, yes, we can hope, we can pray, but I told my students, going on social media and slamming this and that, and getting trolled, etc. I said, what is the use? I said, the thing you can do, this is my actual lecture to my Ateneo class last week. I said, what you can do the most is you will not waste this opportunity you have of studying in the Ateneo. You will all submit your requirements on time. You will all take the final exam. You will not give me excuses that your internet is down or your whatever. I said, because I know which ones among you really have bad internet, and there are only 2 people who have bad internet and everybody else has better internet than me. Dinaretso ko talaga sila. So instead of telling me about anxiety-provoking things, which we have no control over, I said, if you really, really want to make a difference in the world, and all of you say you want to, that's why you went to Ateneo, the most important thing you can do for your mental health and for our country is for you to hone and develop your skills despite the pandemic. That is the most important thing that you can do. And that is what your parents want you to do. That is what your teachers want you to do. And I said, diretso na ako sa parang kung kayo yung estudyante ko, diretso ko na yung lecture ko sa kanila. I said, do you know why you even go to school? Why there's even Ateneo? I told them that. I said, what is the real reason for going to school anyway? I said, you guys gripe about this, gripe about that. I said, school is not a place wherein you can excel so that your parents will have bragging rights. I said, that's not what school is. I said, school is just a place for you to develop your skills. Done. I said, but the real aim of school is you develop your skills, number 1, to help yourself. Yes, oxygen mask. But number 2, help yourself so you can help other people. I said, that's it. That is the definition of a school. So don't muddle it, don't make it. I said, if that is so clear, I said, then we teachers know what our responsibilities are. The parents know what our responsibilities are. I said, so you kids students should also know what your responsibilities are. I said, when you're in school, you're not expected yet to save the world. You cannot do it. I said, how can you save the world? You can barely pass your subjects. I said, you can barely save yourself. I said, many of you, I said, I love your passion. I love your heart. I love it that you want to make a difference. I love it that you're so critical about how this pandemic is being handled. I said it because these students are they're really like that, you know. I said, but if you only keep on criticizing how things are being handled and you do not have the skills, make the handling better. I said, then just stop criticizing and be humble enough to learn first, to start with yourself first, I said, rather than keep on criticizing other people. Even if, I said, I agree with your criticisms, even if the criticisms are factual, yes, but this is what you have to do first. And I said, you make yourself anxious sometimes for no reason. Right after I said that lecture, they were very quiet. I know some people didn't like it, but I got 3 emails thanking me that it made sense now. These are from my students. So at least 3 people appreciated it. Napasabi ko lang, parents. I wasn't so sure I was going to say it, but you know, what I told the students is still fresh in my mind. So focus on what you can do and tell your kids, just focus on your learning. Focus on, hindi na yung mga iba. Just focus on the learning muna. Yun. And fact chain messages and connect with family and friends. And let's just be kind to our kids. The rational part of anyone's brain, the prefrontal cortex, the PFC, which is just here, it matures only at 25 to 30 years old. Okay? Not even my students are this old. And even my grad students, even those who are 25, they said they're in the 30 stage. They're still not really rational. What is ruling all our kids now, your students, your kids, my students, would be the amygdala, the primitive parts of the brain, the hind brain, that's evolution. And the amygdala is the seat of fear and impulsivity. So if your daughters are always anxious, that is the amygdala talking. If your sons are always impulsive, that's the amygdala talking. So now that we know that this is very active in the teen years, we can be more patient with them. Diba? So let's not keep on yelling at them. Let's just understand them a bit more. Refrain from immediate blame, exercise a lot of patience, but also seek a mediator trusted by kids. Last part of my talk, how do we raise resilient kids? This, I talked about this before. Values are caught rather than taught, so practice resilience yourself. If your children see that you have grit and resilience, you don't have to tell them anything. You don't have to give them a lecture at all. They will actually imbibe that value. Very important, avoid overindulgence. So important. Don't give them everything they want. Learn to say no when they are young. Because when they are older, you cannot say no anymore. When I say young, it would be until maybe grade 5, 6. By grade 6, 7, if you cannot say no to them, you probably will find it very hard to say no. Remember again the story of the mother who cannot give in, because if she says no to her child, the child threatened to kill himself. Ganun na yung mangyayari. So avoid overindulging them and avoid, but at the same time, so don't spoil them, but also avoid unrealistic. Don't keep on telling them they should be number 1. Thankfully, I'm so happy. ICA is one of the schools that stopped giving honors and grades because that is not what is important now. What is important in this pandemic is learning. According to many of my ICA students, their younger sisters are very happy that there are no honors. They are very happy. It's a big source of anxiety that's taken out. The funny thing is they say the ones who are not happy are the parents of honor students because they still want their kids to have the honors. But I say it's not true because some parents of honor students also privately told me they're also happy. So it depends also on what kind of parent you are. So growth mindset, not fixed on dwek. Make praise, if you're going to praise them, sincere, specific, and based on reality. Very important. So important. Let children experience disappointment and even failure and ensure that they learn. I've said this long ago in one of the ICA talks. This is by Dr. Tim Elmore in his book. There are 12 huge mistakes. I took out some of them, but these are the ones that really resonate with us. So this is what not to do. So we don't want to let them fail. We project our lives on them. We are inconsistent. We remove the consequences. So these are all, this would be You have to avoid doing this so that our kids can come up with more gratitude and more hope and more grit. 3 values that many kids don't have today that we wish they would have. Ang Team Elmore pa rin to, we won't let them struggle. We give them what they should earn. We remove all pain. We do it for them. We prepare the path for the child for the path. This is called lawnmower parenting. So we should not be doing this. We should do the opposite of this one. Funny thing lang, ayan no. So thank God wala ng grades. So before it was the child was responsible for his grades. Ngayon, the parents blame the teacher. This is an internet meme. Helicopter parents. Okay? We don't want to be like this also. Okay? Whether their children need them or not. Many helicopter parents just maybe they're not bad parents, and all of us have, because we're Chinese, all of us I think have a bit of a helicopter parent in us. I mean, only a Chinese parent would actually write The Battle Came of the Tiger Mother. Remember that by Amy Chua before? So it could be also cultural, but we should also know that when our children need us, we have to be there. But we should also know when to let go and let them solve problems by themselves. No tutors and ganyan-ganyan. Going back to parents, self-care. How can you thrive and how can you be strong? So parents, please do not be ashamed to ask for help. Sometimes parents, you may have to spend time alone. Sometimes parents, you may have to put yourself first. Sometimes parents, this is not all the time. Okay, so we sometimes put ourselves first so that we can serve our children. It is not putting ourselves first because we are just for the sake of self, whatever. It's putting ourselves first. We care for ourselves first so that we can be there and really present for our loved ones. Parents, sometimes you would need to ask for what you need very politely, but ask for what you need. You would have to set boundaries. You will have to, one big self-care thing I do is I never do social media. And that's part of my self-care. I don't do it. I just don't do it. Because I need to be sane for the people I'm dealing with. So that's my biggest boundary. Sometimes we just have to stay at home. This is pre-COVID. And sometimes parents, we have to say no. We have to say no to other parents. Sometimes we also have to say no to charitable work. So many students tell me that their parents are very active in, these clubs, one organization, one other, but they're not active with their family. So sometimes parents, we need to prioritize our children, perhaps. And parents, very important. Every parent who is listening in here, no one is perfect. I know many of these things and I've made so many mistakes as a parent. So we cannot keep on beating ourselves for what we should have done, what we did not do, at the very least is now you know what to do. So be gentle on yourself because God is gentle with us. So as long as we keep on trying to help our kids, we keep on trying to be better people, we keep on trying to help the world, that is all that's needed. Because I've so many Zoom were in the mothers, and usually it's the mothers, they're crying and crying, and I just wish I can hug them, but we can't, it's Zoom. And I just keep on telling them, it is not your fault, it's your genetics, it is not your fault that you're a late mother, it is not your fault that but they keep on, many of the mothers think it's their fault. It is not your fault, mother. It is not your fault. It is not. And the most important thing is you love your child. And even if you feel your child doesn't love you, they do. But you just need to have more help, more outside help, more professional help for you to be able to deal with what's happening. And parents, we need to help us step back. Many times we're always emotional tayo lagi. So just a bit. In psychology, we call it self-regulation and self-knowing. But even after telling you all this, the biggest antidote to mental health And this one is told to be my father, Ben Nepres, my mentor. I often talk about him. In the end, with the hardest cases we have in school, the ones who, I've been helping them for 2 to 3 years, hindi pa rin, they're like trying to end their lives for the 5th time. Minsan lang, umiiyak na ako kay Father Neves, so I don't know what to do anymore, medicine doesn't work, therapy doesn't work. In the end, in our worst cases, in the end, Father Ben told me the only way for good mental health for our students and for ourselves, just 2 things. Okay? First is however bad the situation is, we still count our blessings. It's so ironic because students cannot think about their blessings when they're depressed. And that is exactly when sometimes we will tell them, well, but think about, I would think about, when was the last time, think about your childhood with your mom, when you were telling me that before you had a good 6th birthday party. And even if they're so depressed, they would actually have a small smile. And for momentarily, nawawala yung depression nila. So rather than telling them that, because for them, life is so hard already, I would actually try my best, and it doesn't always work, to make them dwell on good memories. So they would dwell on these memories for a while, and at least for that span of time, they're not as depressed. So hard to do. Okay? When you want to do this, first you acknowledge that your child is in a bad place. Say that, oh, anak, I really know, I wish, parang, in short, just validate their feelings. Say something like, what do I say? I would just say something like, that must really be so hard for you. Ganun lang yung sabi ko. And pag sabi ko doon, minsan sa Zoom, umiiyak na sila. Umpisa na yung iyak. That's the only thing I just say, that must really be so hard for you. I don't say anything. If they tell me that their best friend was a frenemy, and they tell me so many things, and they're then I will just keep on listening. Minsan it's 30 minutes. Wala akong sinasabi. They'll just say the whole thing. Then I'll just say, that must be very hard for you. And then bigla lang, yan lang sabihin ko, iiyak na talaga. Lahat lalabas na rin. So sometimes it's just it. But then afterwards, I would just say, yeah, but, I say, she's not your only friend. And you told me before, na, you had good before the pandemic. You would go to SM North EDSA with this person. And kumusta ka? Are you doing it with her now? So I would try to reframe na yes, this person betrayed her, but there's another person, ganon. So that's how, at least I do it. So parents, you may want to do that. So there are 2 things. First is to count your blessings, not your burdens, which means making the most of what we have, which means, in a sense, stop complaining. Parang just focus on the good rather than on the bad. And the second, very, very important one, is our children will focus on helping other people. Yoko Ono, John Lennon's wife, said this before. Healing yourself is connected with healing others. Many of my most depressed students found purpose in this pandemic. And they were able to overcome, even they're still taking medications, but they were able to overcome the worst parts of depression only because they suddenly felt they were useful. Somebody needed them in this pandemic. That their lives had meaning pala. That's why they don't want to end their lives. That's the most important thing. And same thing, Mahatma Gandhi told us, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Ultimately, for mental health, okay, the people who can focus outside themselves, mental disease kasi is always focusing inside it. Kawawa ako, you're always in your head. Yan yung problema sa mental health na issues. So dito, kung outside, I can give this, I can do that. If we can focus on that for ourselves and for our children, there would be fewer mental health issues around. So that's the biggest thing here. So that's it, everyone. Thank you, stay well, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Doc Rina, for that very insightful presentation. I'm sure that our parents learned a lot from the talk. So We gathered the questions from the MS Teams and also here in Zoom. Maybe we have like 15 minutes to answer. We have about 5 questions long. All right, so let's ask the first question. Will it affect my daughter if she sees her father sleeping very late playing?
I don't know your daughter, and I don't know the situation of the relationship between, I don't know the relationship between the daughter and the father, but common sense tells us because values are caught rather than taught, that is by Dr. Hani Karandang, kung pwede, if the, sometimes you see the father, some savior fathers have told me, they need to play games because they want an outlet for their stress because they work during the day. So I would get that, but I would tell them, play the game, but don't let your daughter or lalo na your son see you. So play the game, but not in front of your daughter. So yes, that's your outlet, and yes. Kasi yes. Kasi ang sasabihin ng daughter mo would be, why is daddy allowed to play the game? Why am I not? May problema na tayo doon. So, and then what I told these 2 savior fathers, who are both my friends, I'm actually the inaanak of one of them, is they should do it because for their daughter's sake. And they both did it. These are both savior fathers. They both did it. They told me now they're not as guilty. Kasi nag-aaway sila sa wife nila. The wife would tell them not to do it. And then they would want to do it. So ngayon, they're doing it. Parang they now have a den or whatever. So yeah, so they thank me for the, and kaya nitong dalawa. So for the answer here is very likely, I would feel better, and so would you, and so would your husband. So your husband can play in peace without any guilt if he knows that your daughter is not around. Diba? Better na lang for him to have a separate room of his own that he can play. And then hopefully your daughter should already be in bed by the time. Para hindi niya nakikita yung asawa mo. So yun. Next question.
Next question. There are times when I feel like my daughter is just using mental health as an excuse to not do her responsibilities. How can I understand her better? That's our next question.
That's actually a good question. And yes, you're right. Many times I feel that my students are using mental health as an excuse for them not to do well. You're totally right. So how can we understand them? Ako kung ganyan, diretso na ako, I call the student for a consultation. And then I would start, it's basically what I said kanina, yung observation. I would say, you know, I see that everybody was able to submit this paper, but you were not able to do it. And I know that you live in a place wherein you have no problem at all with your internet. What is really going on? So you know, yan yung ganon. And she would start talking about her mental health, or ganyan-ganyan. Ang sinasabi ko, minsan, sabi ko ganon. Sabi ko, the thing is, while we in school really do support your mental health, there is also a standard in school that they should meet. This is me. I said, so this is what we do. One is I will now make an appointment for you with the college guidance office, and I would do it. Second, I would ensure I would require you to already do your first session within this week. Third, I will also be talking with the guidance counselor to see what can be done for you, ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. So sabi ko, I can perhaps give you a few more days to be able to complete your requirement, but I say you also understand this is also not fair to the rest of the class who was able to submit the requirements on time. So ginaganon ko. So sabi ko, but I know you may have mental health ganito, so we're going to address your mental health, but at the same time, I said, if you really feel that you cannot go on with academics, then I will recommend that you take a leave of absence. Gumagano na ako diretso na, and it has happened. Okay, for the mother, you don't have the luxury I have. What should you do? Tell the daughter, ask your daughter. So yung sinabi ko kanina, lahat. The observations, the assessments. And I don't really know what mental health your daughter may have. It probably is depression or anxiety or both. If I were you, and how should you connect with your daughter? Can you get Lifeline, the book Lifeline? Go and look at the scripts for chapters 2, which is depression, and chapter 4, which might be anxiety. So look and see what the parents said and how to say it. because the book has things to say and what not to say. Because your question to me is, how can you connect? The only way you can connect is, as a parent, you may have to do the first move. Okay, so start with the observation. Tell your daughter you're there for the daughter, but also tell your daughter that her mental health issues cannot always be used as an excuse for substandard performance. Because that is what we in college would agree. We are very compassionate, but we also expect them to do something. Kung hindi nila kaya, leave of absence kami. We have a new grade, by the way, which in Ateneo we have. I know in ICAO you don't, because in high school you don't have it. But we may think about it. Right now in college, we have a grade called incomplete. So some of the ones who cannot, because of mental health issues, they cannot complete the requirements. Instead of giving them an F, which we used to do, we would give them an incomplete, so they don't have a mark. And we give them a few months to complete it. Except we also I would tell my students, if many of you have incomplete marks, baka mahihirapan din kayo kasi kung 5 na yung incomplete niyo, baka hindi pala rin niyo matapos. After a certain time, if they still cannot complete the incomplete marks, it will become an F. So that is what we're trying to do, especially to address the pandemic situation, especially because of the mental health. For the parent, the parent who asked this question, most important thing now, go and get the book, read the book, look at the go to the what to say, what not to say, and go to the scripts so you can see what are the things, how can you start the conversation, what can you do, and what can you be on the watch out for. So that one, please do it now and go to those 2 chapters agad. Okay, for Ika, I think it's depression or anxiety. Do that one na.
Thank you, Doc.
Next question.
For our third question, how do I practice self-care if I feel like there's not enough time in a day to put it in? Example, baby or toddler sleeps late sometimes and the only time to self is at night, but I lose sleep because of it, but I have work the next day.
Okay. I actually do not know because I don't know your situation. All we know is baby and toddler needs care. That one I know. But I also know you need care. So how do you practice self-care? If I were you, diba, the first thing I said in my self-care is do not be afraid to ask for help. So why are you just be the one doing it? Why isn't your spouse helping out? I know your spouse is also working, but so are you. And because we're in the Philippines, isn't there a helper or a nurse or a yaya who can help out? Unlike in the US, here we at least have the good fortune of having people who can help us out here. In your work also, honestly, in my work, and I'm extremely busy, but even ako, there's several things I used to do na ako lang, but I felt it cannot always be me. So ang ginagawa ko ngayon, I'm training some younger faculty to do some of the stuff that I have to do. Yes, it is not perfect. Yes, sometimes it's longer, but you might have to think about that one. One is we know that the baby and the toddler needs help, so you cannot not do that. 2, but you also need care. So because you have work, you have baby, you have toddler, you have the house, you need help, I think, in all fronts. So ask your spouse for help with the baby and the toddler. Your spouse has to help. Ask the yaya, ask your office in some way, in a way that won't affect maybe your, the way they regard you. But there's nothing right now. Many companies are talking about work-life balance. So, and especially for women's issues. So it would be also good for you to have certain help in the office, because maybe, okay, how do I reframe it? If you don't take care of yourself, you will get sick mentally and physically. And if you get sick, who is going to take care of your baby and your toddler? Wala na. Who is going to do the work in the office? Wala na. Who's going to do the work in the house? Wala na. So I'm really sorry but basically you can't really work that hard that you become sick. I work extremely hard, extremely. I have like 100 things to do. But I know when I need help. I know when to say no. There are certain things, even in school, that I say no to. And even with Ika, I cannot say no. There's so many talks for schools I say no to. Even if they tell me, please, we really need it, we really need it. I know they need it. I know it will help them. But hindi ko na kaya. So I would have to say no. Even if I want to do it, I say no. Even if it's to help the nation, I say no. Because magkakasakit na talaga ako. So kung kaya ko ng ganyan, for this parent, and my heart goes out to you, you're a very good parent, but you have to take care of yourself. You start by asking help from other people in different fields. God bless for this parent. God bless you and your child.
Okay, for the fourth question, how can we help our children develop hobbies that they can turn to so they are not self-focused in a world of one? Can we provide a balanced education that develops life skills?
Right now, Ika is actually very balanced. I always felt that one reason why I wanted to serve the country was because I think many of the Ikan parents, the older Ikan parents, you know her. For those who are not Ikans, you don't know her, but the Ikans know her and we love her. Because I was also inspired by the example of Sister Teresita Canivel, who was a directress when I was in Ika before. So I saw how hard Sister Tere worked, so grabe, and how much she was quite strict when she was our director. So we were actually a bit scared of her, but she was strict and she had high expectations of us. But parang with Sister Teresita's selfless example, we were inspired to, at least the Ikans in my generation and my batch, were very inspired. Many of us actually went into professions that are, into service professions. The school for me actually is doing enough. Right now, because of the constraints, I showed you the slide of DepEd, how many hours lang we're supposed to do. And parents normally have so many demands that they want this, they want this, they want this, they want this. Sadly, maybe because of the necessity for Ikans to be able to hone the skills which they would find difficult to hone on their own, skills like mathematics, skills like science, like Chinese, which they will not learn on their own unless there's a class for that. Because of the constraints we have, every school is dealing with it. Sadly, we cannot have as many immersions or entrepreneurial whatever as we used to do. Parents, again, please do not give it for the school. Many of the Ikans I know who are into service also tell me their parents lead lives of service. If they see that parents are very self-focused, and sadly many parents are, I'm really sorry, the stories I'm hearing from my students are their parents seem to be really, really I cannot say selfish, but self-centered would be more of it. Laging it's their needs, it's their emotions, it's their ganyan. So parang parents, if your kids see you also going beyond the self, okay, practical things. Treating your helpers very well would be one. Many of my students tell me that their parents are really, really not very mean. That's their term, mean to the help. Two, helping out in the community in a way that's not a very fancy organization. So some of the kids are saying they would prefer parents to help out in that. There's no glory to it. Like you're not president of this, you're not ganito, you're not counselor, you're not barangay tanod, nothing. That's what some of the students need. So they see that you're helping out even one or two people. They see it really without you telling them, whoa, I'm such a good parent, I'm helping out. Hindi ganon. They see that you're really doing it. That could also help. They see that they see that you're really being compassionate towards them. And they see that your life is not just, many of my Ikans and Xavier students complain that their parents' lives are just the business, the family business, open, the business and the family. That's it. They actually say, I wish my mom had a real job. So, but your mom has a job. No, she doesn't. She's just helping out in my dad's ganyan. So, but that's a real job. But they don't see it. They don't, they say, but you know, and they would tell me this. And that's why, mom, I don't really want to work in the family business. I said, why? It's because there's no meaning in it. You know, so parents, ganun din, parang, can you also maybe in your own small way, show that what you do is also helping other people? So if you're running a family business, show that even if your family business is the most, it's not glamorous, it's not anything, but it's something essential. You can actually tell your kids, you know, akala ninyo we're only doing this thing, but this one is helping the frontliner. Alam mo, akala mo we're doing this, pero ganon. So your kids need to find meaning in what you do, which means for them to find meaning in what you do, you need to be able to articulate to them why you do certain things you do, which means you need to be able to know and find meaning in what you do yourself. So don't downplay what you do. Don't just say, oh, you know, don't just say I'm just helping my house, you know, your dad out. Kasi parang it goes to show the kids. So parang again for the fam biz, show them that in short, parents, think about yourself first. What are the things I'm doing now? And of the things that I'm doing now, what are the things that are really helping other people? Meron yan, parents, meron yan. It doesn't have to be glamorous. It doesn't have to help so many people. It can help a couple of people in the neighborhood. It can help a relative in a good way. So what is it I'm doing that's making me go beyond the self? And that is what you should talk to your child about. How do you talk about it? Just on the dinner table, just say, alam mo, today, I was so happy this happened. And you know naman, I was talking to this ganito, I'm helping me. Alam mo, ito yung nangyari and I felt so good. Alam mo yung mga ganon, ordinary things that come about, those are the ones that are going to tell your child and show your child that it doesn't have to be something big. Many, many times, I was actually very busy with when I was growing up, even when I was having a difficult pregnancy, I never took a leave. So there were times actually that I was coming back home and my son was already in bed. And sometimes I used to feel guilty that I was not there for him. But then, you know, so one time when he was in grade 6, I asked him, I said, Scott, I know there's a lot of pressure on you because you're my son. People know me. So there's a pressure on you to do well. It's not easy being known as my son. And I said, you know, I keep on saying this and people will expect you to also be ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. And, you know, I said, Scott, do you ever regret? And, you know, there's ganon. And he just told me that, one, he was quite, you know, yes, he said yes, he sometimes did miss me. And yes, I never attended PTC. But he also said that when he saw me sometimes just coming home very tired, and he would eavesdrop when I talked to my husband about my mentally ill students. He said he realized that my students are also, in a sense, my children. And that he had to share me with other people. And that he originally didn't like it, but now he's very proud of me for doing that. So basically, yung hindi ko alam, na nakikita pala niya, because I never talked to him about it. And I never even knew he was eavesdropping. He was supposed to be asleep. So parang, what am I trying to say? Those small things that we do, which we don't know have an effect on them, do have an effect on them. So it doesn't have to be something conscious. Na, okay, let's now all go beyond the self, let's do this. You can't, because it sounds fake. It has to be something that you already do, something that you feel is helping other people, which you can just talk to your kids about. That you feel happy because you are singing in the choir. You feel happy because you did this donation drive. You felt happy because you talked to your nephew, you know, and your nephew, ganito, ganon lang, just small things. So more important is you say it, you convey it. Second, you convey it in a positive way. And third, it has to be consistent. It's not a one-shot deal. Now let's do this big thing and that's it. No, it has to be a part of life. It has to be really something what you do. That is what the students now are looking about. They feel that many adults are fake. And they're doing it now just for the message. It has to be something that you do day in, day out. And that maybe it doesn't have to be big. So yun, yung ganon. So good question.
Can we apply that tip po to this next question? What's the best way to address children around 10 years old who love to complain and make a big deal out of everything? Like child would cry and complain even at uncontrollable instances like when she gets a sour mango for dinner.
Yeah, that would be honestly, yan yung naririnig ko ngayon na nangyayari. So yes, parent, you're right. That's what my students tell me. They're seeing in their younger sisters. Mom, I never used to be that way, but my younger sister is so irritating. They tell me that. So yes, I'm happy it's coming from you. You can tell the child, why are you crying? That's the first. Why are you crying? Okay. So the most important thing, don't get mad first. First is, why are you crying? So that the child will begin. The child will say, that's because I got a sour mango. So you will say, okay. So if you get a sour mango, what is it? Do you want a sweet mango? The child will say yes. So you say, okay, what do you think is a better solution rather than crying? Because you want a sweet mango, will crying help you get a sweet mango? So hopefully the child, 10 years old, she will have to say no. So you say, okay. So next time you get a sour mango, just laugh at it. And you can also say this, parent, some people love sour mangoes. You can say that. Not everybody has the same thing. So you're crying because you got this, but other people may like that. They might cry because they have a sweet mango. Yana. Then you say that, and then and then you can say, okay, the next time you will have a sour mango, because you want a sweet mango, maybe you can leave the sour mango for me or for anyone, for Yaya or anyone who wants to eat it. And then you will go to the fridge and you will get a sweet mango. Yana. So in short, when they cry, it is annoying. It's in psychology we call it regression. So the crying is really regression because babies cry, and when babies cry, it's normal because babies cry to signal that they need something. But a 10-year-old should not really be crying anymore. We know that. But a 10-year-old cries because they're frustrated that they're not able to get something that they want. So one is you help them do alternative modes of action. So it's natin ko kanina. Like in sweet mango, you do it that way. Or second, you can also tell them, so next time, is this a very big problem? So, parang ganun, parang when she cries again, and another thing, you can, parang don't answer the question for them. In short, you teach them na, okay, you cried in situation A. You cried when you had a quarrel with your best friend. You cried also when you had a sour mango. Do you think they're equally bad? Gaganon siya. Hopefully the kid will say no. Yan na. And now you can say, okay, there are certain situations wherein you can cry. Like when, if a loved one passes away, of course we cry because it's a big thing. But there are also second, other things which are, well, not as big. And you can also say, do you see mommy crying in every single ganyan? So no. So now, since you're a big girl, you can do that now. Hopefully you can do that. So, but yes, that is what. And that is also, the important thing kasi also when they cry is they're so scared, magagalit yung mga magulang if they fail. That's the hidden message. Marami nagsasabi noon. Kasi daw papagalitan sila. So inuunahan na raw nila yung iyak. Kasi kung umiyak sila, di na raw magagalit yung parent. Although some fathers tell me, lalo sila nagagalit. These are fathers na. Pero parang, parang hindi sila sigawin, iyak na sila. Yan na yun. So parents, tell them also, like a sour mango, that we often cannot get what we want. In life, we cannot get what we want. If the child is older, you can also tell stories about your childhood. Many kids love hearing it when mommy and daddy are young, especially stories wherein you failed and you learned something. So tell them, parents, your assignment will be, think about instances wherein you yourself failed. You yourself did not do well in school. You yourself did this thing. You yourself ganyan. And how did you overcome it? And that is when you can use that story when your child does something. Maraming ganun na. It works with some kids. If your communication is okay, it will work. If your communication is not okay, they might shut you down. If your communication is really not okay, you need professional help. But most of you don't need professional help yet. So kaya kung 10 years old, pwede pa yan. But parent, be careful na kasi 10 years old is the dividing line na eh. Kung medyo 10 years old, nag-ano na siya, just you want to empower your child. So that's the word. You want to empower your child. There is a problem and you are acknowledging her problem. Okay, don't say she's a baby because she's crying. Just say, yes, I understand you're crying because you're frustrated, but will it help you get the sweet mango? It won't. So yon, make her redirect her to it. And the moment she does the sweet mango and she doesn't cry, you praise her. Don't say she's a good kid. Praise her for the action. Wow, that's you really listen to what I say. And now you have your mango. Good job. So that's the way to praise. Hindi you're the best child on earth. Wag ganon. Yun. So, praise it in the context and the kanyan. It will make her feel happier that she can have that. She will do it more. Yeah.
Okay, so as much as we want to answer all the questions, we only have limited time. So maybe we'll accommodate one last question, Doc. So regarding no tutor, if your child doesn't want to do her homework on her own, but when the parents get involved and there becomes some conflict, how do you solve that problem?
That's actually my entire book on raising independent learners. And I did tackle that question in some way in the old talk, in the previous talk. For the parent who asked this one is such a common topic. So can you get the Raising Independent Learners book? Because there are several questions there on the learning on their own and the tutoring and the conflict of kids. So there are strategies there for you to use. Like how can you make, and there are even certain subjects, like if it's mathematics, what can you do to make it more palatable? If it's Filipino, which somehow econs are not, don't like too much, what can you do? But there are ways on self-learning. So what can you, meron pang developmentally, like age of ganito. So this one is question not so much on mental health, but on learning topics and strategies. And if the child is used to a tutor, medyo mas mahirap yan. Say, yan na yun. But there are ways there in the book. So for that parent, it's not a mental, so you don't have to do Lifeline, but just get the Raising Independent Learners. Your exact question is raising an independent learner question. So how do you raise a person who can study on their own? And it's the answer there is structure. That's the biggest answer. It is not motivation. It is not whether the kid is in the mood to study. It is not kung kaya nila. But it is the structure and the place, the routine, the quiet time to study. So that one should help. Raising independent learners should help. The other one that would help would be the Ateneo parents like the helping our children do well in school. There are 10 strategies there. And there are parents with their names there who said this tactic worked for them, this tactic worked for them. We interviewed many parents whose kids never had tutors. So what did they do? So ito yung sinabi nila. So that one might help. So that one is more of it's more of my old talk. The one there. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Doc Quina. Thank you. Thank you also to all our parent viewers. We hope that the session for today would help you become better equipped to become your children's source of strength in these trying times. We are grateful for your patience, understanding, and trust as we continue to work together so we can maintain a healthy and safe learning environment for your daughters. So to award the Certificate of Appreciation, may I call on Ms. Joan Villamor, the ICA PA President.
Thank you, Doc Quina. Always a privilege to have you as our speaker. And I'd just like to allow me to read the citation on your Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is presented to Quina N. Lee Chua, PhD, for her invaluable contribution as resource speaker for the parenting talk on the topic, Thriving Through Crisis, Becoming Your Child's Source of Strength, held on January 15, 2021, signed by yours truly and Sister Irene N. Ferrer, MIC, President of ICA. Thank you, Doc Quina.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Doc Quina. So we have now come to the end of part 2 of our parenting talk. So we would like to thank all of you for spending your time with us today. We would also like to express our gratitude to all school administrators, teachers, and staff who extended their big support in making this virtual event possible. So the recorded session will be available in the ICA website, www.icagh.edu.ph. So please evaluate the parenting talk by responding to the online evaluation form that will be sent to you through your class Viber group. The link will also be sent in the question box for MS Teams and the chat box here in Zoom.
So,
Okay.
thank you
Alright,
once again.
Thank you again, and may
And may
God's
God's blessings
blessings be with
be with
you
you
always.
always.
Thank you.